But with the Harris campaign's lie still hovering over our democracy, Mr. Poole finds it more difficult to book guests with contrary views, including Democratic politicians and members of Congress. The reputational harm the Harris campaign inflicted on Mr. Poole will take millions of dollars to undo.
It'll take millions of dollars to undo the damage made by a single tweet? Holy Tim. I mean, if this is reality, I mean, he's also got his own lawsuits coming towards him right now, so I don't want to get in the way of those. But, like, if that was the case, man, like, half the you do every single day should be liable for multiple lawsuits.
Complaint: Tim Poole as plaintiff versus Harris for president. Jury trial demanded. You can see we have the official filing here. I need not read the introduction. I'll give you the brief summary as it pertains to this lawsuit we have filed. For those that are just tuning in, I will give you the quick update once again, as this will also be a standalone segment. I am suing the Harris campaign for defaming me, for claiming that I had called for the extrajudicial execution of Donald Trump's political opponents, like all of his voters who refused to support him. They literally said...
Okay, so let's start at what the post itself said. It said that Tim Poole and Laura Loomer were political operatives, Trump operatives. And it was the fact that neither of them work directly for the Trump campaign, I think, is the basis for a lot of this. To say that they are Trump operatives when they in fact do not work directly for Trump, but instead try to push his agenda through their actions, their donations, their streams, their broadcasting networks, their open statements publicly in interviews, when they attend private or public events, what they tweet and post on all social media, all of it directly supporting and trying to help Trump get elected. But they don't actually directly accept Trump campaign money. So that's where the idea being that they're not, in fact, operatives, so to speak.
That I was a Trump operative with a Project 2025 plan calling for legal authorities beyond the scope of legal authorities that would allow Trump to jail and execute anyone who refuses to support him if he wins. It is so antithetical to my views. It is the exact opposite of what was actually being said in the video. And so I will show you guys this filing, and we'll provide some commentary and understanding on what is.
Tim, I got to ask you a quick question on this.
Yeah.
With what's been going on with the attempted assassinations on Donald Trump, now multiple assassinations we're moving into.
Yeah, I know, 2 white Republican voters. The call is coming from inside the House.
I have a feeling that there's going to be...
And Tyrannical Rex, thanks for subscribing as well.
Multiple more. It seems like once this kind of happens, you just can't quite put it back in. How does things like this, like the Harris campaign saying this about Timcast and you, not actually put your life in danger?
I suppose I should probably read for you from here, which outlines some of these incidents. I will mention an individual showed up at one of our properties, and the report that I was given, because I'm not there, because we're not there, was that an employee was physically attacked. So the insanity that emerges when a presidential campaign claims that you as a podcast host want them to be executed, I think people...
Oh, that's Big Papa Fascist? I've heard of Big Papa Fascist. I don't recognize him. Cool stuff. Hey, Big Papa Fascist, what do you think about the potential danger that is impacted upon people based on the rhetoric of others? What do you think about that, Big Papa Fascist?
People really need to understand how shockingly insane that is, and the damages that come with it. So I do think it's important to point out as well, for me, I'm personally impacted by this. My business is impacted by this. My friends, my family, my security, and many, many other things.
That part's important because, like, a lawsuit is kind of frivolous if it doesn't show that there's going to be an economic impact. So you have to demonstrate. And again, lawyers, there are a variety of different kinds. There's very honorable ones, and then of course there is Lionel Hutz's. But I have no idea who Tim Poole's legal team is. You would have been told, most likely, if you had expensive lawyers, especially, or a team of them, at a certain point, well, here's the trajectory that we can take. This is the potential lawsuit that you can do. This, unfortunately, will not have a lot of merit in terms of them defaming you intentionally. You would have to demonstrate that you've had financial losses as a result of this. If those aren't really demonstratable, then it makes it much more difficult for a case. But specifically here, in that clip that it's Tim Pool and Laura Loomer talking, right? It's Tim Pool and Laura Loomer talking. Laura Loomer eventually talks about how, the people who have mistreated Trump, some of them should be getting the death penalty. And then the stream cuts out because Tim Pool wanted to not have his channel get affected by her doing open death threats as she's done on his show before. He's had to complain about it multiple times, how guests keep making open death threats and stuff like that. The campaign, which released the video, and they haven't taken that tweet down, by the way, it's still up there. It basically shows that and then has the text on top of it that says Trump operatives. And so immediately both Laura and Tim were like, I'm not a Trump operative. I don't work for the Trump campaign. That this doesn't apply. It doesn't count.
We have been sitting here watching a corporate media apparatus as well as prominent politicians lie over and over about everything. I think they've crossed the line many, many times. This is just one example. Here's the filing, which I'll try to make it quick so we can talk more about the issues, but you get an understanding of where we're coming from. They mentioned that I'm a social media a creator, independent journalist, interviewing many people such as Marianne Williamson, a former...
Here it is. Still up. You'd think if they were terrified by this lawsuit, this would have been deleted, but still up. Trump operatives say their Project 2025 plan is to give Trump total and check legal powers so they can jail and execute those who don't support Trump if he wins. They've since scrubbed this video from YouTube. So this would have had to have been done maliciously with intent to directly harm the individuals by spreading falsifiable rumors about them that impacted their business. And unfortunately, we are in the Everything app, which can't seem to do anything. Thanks, Elon.
Should Democrats be in jail? No question. When Donald Trump gets elected, should he start locking them up? No question.
Yeah, I was like, it's not working. I can download it.
Democratic presidential candidates. I cast my ballot for Barack Obama in 2008. I'd endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2016, though I was not nearly as prominent, mind you. My views defy easy categorization on the left-right spectrum. I'm fairly moderate. It goes on to mention that I was skeptical of the global war on terror, joining protesters in New York City during Occupy. I was critical of George W. Bush. It goes on. They mention...
So this really, it feels a lot like an airing of grievances more than anything. It feels like the same things that he says, like when Sam Cedar ended up leaking all those Tim Pool, text messages back and forth. He does this thing where he's just like, he's so profoundly desperate to be seen, and to be recognized as not being a right winger or a MAGA or a far right extremist. And just like, no. Don't you understand? Like I was against this like universally accepted right wing take. And here's another time where I did something that I think progressives are into. And here's like, and the same things happen to me for smaller like right-wing content creators. Well, they'll send me emails, they'll send me DMs where they're like, hey, did you know that I was kind of into this element of Marxism back in the day, and blah blah blah, as in like, I'm not as bad as like you think I am or you say I am on your show and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't understand this like strange desperation to be liked on the left.
Should Democrats be in jail? No question. When Donald Trump gets elected, should he start locking them up? No question. Should there be lists of Democrats that need to go to jail? 100%. And the reason for that is they've committed crimes. We need to make sure that when Donald Trump wins, we've got an attorney general, a deputy attorney general, a head of the CIA and the FBI. Kash Patel would be fantastic. We can have attorney general. There's some names floating around. And then they can start having their investigators and the feds issuing subpoenas, pulling up evidence, and with real evidence, bring them to judges for warrants. Then these people can spend three years of their lives fighting tooth and nail for the crime against the government for crimes they committed, and we can prove. Yeah. And the reason why we put them on trial is that we can show the whole world we will uncover what you've done. We will make sure everyone knows, and you will be held accountable for it.
Not just jail, they should get the death penalty. We actually used to have the punishment for treason in this country.
And that's where they cut it off because, yeah, I assumed they cut it off because they wanted to fall within TOS on YouTube. And once again, you got Loomered. You got Loomered, Tim. And it seems to happen when you bring on Laura Loomer, so that's no surprise.
And I'm a critic of bailouts, financial interests, corporate power. I'm a civil libertarian. But let me go on to get to the meat and potatoes here. The filing says in a post to the social media platform X, which has now been viewed more than 12 million times, the Harris campaign stated Mr. Poole is promoting a, quote, plan to give former President Trump total unchecked legal power so they can jail and execute those who don't support Trump if he wins. The Harris campaign did not hedge this statement or couch it as opinion. To the contrary, to any reasonable reader, the Harris campaign was saying that Mr. Poole wants to suspend the Constitution, make Trump a dictator, and use state power to imprison and kill Mr. Poole and President Trump's political opponents. According to the Harris campaign, then Mr. Poole's plan is to
Again, it'd be nice to go through this, like, once Ravana or other people who have legal expertise do, or maybe even Legal Eagles could produce a video on it to have way better, accurate legal information that I simply cannot provide. I'm but a, fanboy on the sides, cheering on, the noble lawyers doing their hard work here. But I don't know if any of this would constitute, like, a lot of this is implication. You're saying that there was an implication that Tim Pool, through your own statement, was actively trying to call for the assassination through Project, like all this kind of stuff. I was like, that's your interpretation of how you read that tweet, right?
Imitate one of the hallmarks of the most abhorrent, murderous regimes of past and present. What the Harris campaign published was and is a lie. Mr. Pool has never advocated for the lawless, extrajudicial killing of his or anyone else's political opponents. To include in the video clip, the Harris campaign incorporated to its ex post. Both the clip and its context demonstrate Mr. Pool's commitment to civil liberties, which is consistent with his past criticism of drone strikes involving American citizens in the war on terrorism. Shocked by the Harris campaign's malicious disregard for the truth, Mr. Pool almost immediately threatened legal action, but the post and the deception it creates remains to this day. Mr. Pool welcomes debate and discussion from all sides of the political spectrum, including...
Lance, which Trump plus Laura Loomer name won in your poll? It was Lump. Lump beat out Tumor, Doomer, and Vomitus.
From Vice President Harris, Governor Walz, the Harris campaign. As part of his commitment to open discussion, Mr. Pool has even taken out advertisements above the very New York City streets he once walked to engage people who disagree with him, putting millions of dollars where his mouth is on the issue. But with the Harris campaign's lie still hovering over our democracy, Mr. Pool finds it more difficult to book guests with contrary views, including Democratic politicians and members of Congress. The reputational harm the Harris campaign inflicted on Mr. Pool will take millions of dollars to undo. At the same time, Mr. Pool is ramping up his security efforts as a shield against...
It'll take millions of dollars to undo the damage made by a single tweet? Holy shit, Tim. I mean, if this is reality, I mean, he's also got his own lawsuits coming towards him right now, so I don't want to get in the way of those. But, like, if that was the case, shit, man. Like, half the shit you do every single day should be liable for multiple lawsuits.
Those who bought the Harris campaign's lie and might seek to do him and those he cares about harm. A recent incident suggests one man might have already been set off by the Harris campaign's false statement. As I mentioned, a crazy guy showed up to one of our properties. I was not there. The report I was given is that police were called. An employee was attacked physically and left injured. I mean, this stuff is absolutely insane.
Right, but do you have any direct evidence that the two are correlated? Was this an attack by someone specifically because they saw that tweet and that tweet enraged them and then provoked them into doing that? I saw Newsweek talked about it. Conservative podcaster Tim Pool suing Kamala Harris's presidential campaign for allegedly claiming that he was advocating for Donald Trump dictatorship. In a lawsuit filed in West Virginia federal court on Tuesday, Pool claims that Harris campaign falsely said that he backed Project 2025 plan to put Donald Trump in the White House. It also states that the Harris campaign claimed Pool was advocating for the execution of political enemies. The legal action followed a post by Harris's campaign on X, formerly Twitter, over Labor Day weekend. Pool is seeking millions of dollars in compensation and claims that he has to increase security as a result of Harris's campaign online comments. While the Harris campaign published was and is a lie, Mr. Pool has never advocated for the lawless extrajudicial killings of his or anyone else's political opponents. The post allegedly claimed that Pool supported Project 2025, a plan by conservatives to get right-wing supporters employed in every branch of government. Trump has claimed that he has nothing to do with the project and has never read it. Lawrence has also said in a post on social media platform X, which has now been viewed by more than 12 million times, the Harris campaign stated that Mr. Pool is promoting a plan to give former President Trump total unchecked legal power so they can jail and execute those who don't support Trump if he wins. The Harris campaign did not hedge the statement or couch it as opinion. To the contrary, to any reasonable reader, the Harris campaign was saying that Mr. Pool wants to suspend the Constitution, make President Trump a dictator, and use state power to imprison and kill Mr. Pool and Mr. Trump's political opponents. I think you're adding, a little fan fiction here to the post that we already looked at. I also wanted to show you Webster's dictionary when you type in the word operative. And if we scroll down here, operative, 2 of 2, noun. An operator such as an A, artisan or a mechanic, B, a secret agent, C, private investigator, or D, a person who works towards achieving the objectives of a larger interest. According to Webster's dictionary, you got no case, I would say. Because, yeah, by definition, you could call... First off, I wouldn't ever think, if I saw a tweet by Trump HQ that was like, Bernie Sanders operative, the Serfs, blah, 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 I wouldn't be like, oh, well, that's a lawsuit. Bernie Sanders, I'm not even an American. I'm a Canadian. He can't pay me. I'm not paid by the campaign. Oh, it says right there, Sanders operative. I got myself a lawsuit. Oh, yeah, irreparable damage. Maybe all those weird calls I'm getting are coming from people that saw that post. No.
They'll attack people adjacent. What if it's Tim Pool's family? What if it's Tim Pool's? They'll attack people adjacent to you.
There are neighbors next to this property. And I've gotten reports that these individuals are going on their properties, trying to sneak around. I mean, this stuff is nuts. I can't stress. I think people need to realize this. Kamala Harris is the Democratic candidate for the presidency, who posted on our official campaign a social media platform that I have advocated for this. They are pushing this lie. One, I am not a Trump operative. I am not part of Project 2025. I have never advocated for the death penalty. I strongly oppose it and passionately argue against it, even in our members-only show, Debating with People. Now, they go on to mention parties, jurisdiction, venue, etc. They go on to explain that the Kamala Harris campaign actually posts what they call fact checks. On their X account, they actually state, that they're correcting the record and things of this nature.
So people have been commenting already. The problem with having Tim Pool sue you is that Tim Pool uses Tim Pool's judgment to select his lawyer, and that is not a recipe for success. All right, that's one post.
They go on to mention several posts from me. Writing in thousands of hours of video and audio content, Mr. Pool detailed his views on the issues. I am anti-violence, anti-censorship, anti-corporatist, against mass centralization.
It also says that because of the Harris HQ post, that Tim Pool has more difficulty getting Democrats on his show because of the mean tweet. And he'll have to spend millions of dollars on advertising to undo that damage. Number 40. Ultimately, the post accomplished what the Harris campaign set out to do. The post gave Mr. Pool's opponents, including people he wants to reach and engage with, an excuse to distance themselves from Mr. Pool. Political leaders, especially elected Democrats, are now less likely to appear on Mr. Pool's shows, despite his efforts to build bridges for discussion and debate. In this regard, Mr. Pool has put millions of dollars where his mouth is, purchasing high-impact advertising in his native Chicago, New York City, Times Square, to raise awareness. I think one of the ads they posted was about his chickens, if I'm not mistaken, to raise awareness of a show above the very streets of which he took on corporatism in an effort to reach many of the same people he once considered friends and allies. To counter the effects of the Harris campaign disinformation, Mr. Pool will have to spend millions of dollars to win an audience with those who now falsely believe he wants a dictatorship and will imprison and execute his political opponents. So apparently he was going to get so much funny money from having tons and tons and tons of Democratic politicians on a show, but they don't want to go for whatever reason. So that's unfortunate. And as a result of that, he's losing money. So he is owed that money back. Yeah.
Power in any form, against illegal spying in the security state, against racism, fascism, war.
Tim Pool has not survived a motion to dismiss, nor will he. He doesn't even prove in his complaint that the statement made by Kamala Harris's campaign applied to him, opposed to Laura Loomer. When it gets discussed for being nonsense, it's going to claim that the corrupt judiciary is now allowing Harris and the Democrats to illegally defame anybody who dares to disagree with them. If by some miraculous force it survives the motion to dismiss, he will try to voluntarily dismiss the case before discovery and claim. Harris and the Democrats were trying to seize my communications for a fishing expedition to see if the lie they told us was true. You heard it here first. He's going to spin the standing operation procedure and feeling the U.S.'s high burden as defamation, as oppression, that he alone is experiencing for opposing Democrats. It's now he and his type operate. So I guess people are suggesting that this... I agree. I don't think this is going to see a day in court. I think it'll be just dismissed outright. And again, it's one of those things where your legal team, they would, if they were good, if they were honorable, and they were like, actual lawyers, they would tell you, you have a very narrow, if not impossible, victory for success here. But do you want to turn this into a thing? Because we could also do that. We can just write up some very grandiose text, which we will bill you by the hour for, but don't worry about that. And then we can make you sound, a lot more honorable and noble than you really are. We can get you in there saying that you've lost millions of dollars as a result of this defamation and that you can't get, Democrats on your show because people are worried that you're going to try and kill them and stuff like that. And we'll really put it out there, and it'll be public. Everyone will be able to see it. We'll type up the whole thing. It'll be really, really nice. And then a judge will throw it out. And then that'll be that. And then you can basically say afterwards that you were silenced, that this is the deep state, that is probably a judge that is directly working with the Democratic Party. That's basically what you can do here. That's what a good lawyer would tell them, that you can't win. This has a very low chance of winning. But if you want, this could make some publicity for you, which you might see an ROI on the amount of money you have to pay us, because you have to pay us a lot of money per hour, again, billed, to write this all for you, draft it up. But we can, and we will, and then we can propose it, and then a judge will throw it out. In the unlikely event that a judge does not throw it out, then you're in a bit of a sticky situation. Because then you may have to go to that period of time where you might have to start introducing evidence on both sides. There's going to be a thing called discovery, at which point they might be able to investigate and demand to see your financial assets. If those assets have been coming from, say, Russia or other places, that wouldn't look great on you. You don't want to have your whole books opened up. That can get really, really ugly. So at that point, you might want to just back away. We could try and do it honorably and say that, while a judge accepted the case, we don't feel that we're going to see a fair day in court, so we're withdrawing our own lawsuit to protect ourselves, something to that effect. But there's not really a trajectory where you both get the, day in court, you win, and then you see money. That is, very, very small.
Consistent with these views, Mr. Poole criticized Obama for his administration's use of drone strikes, such as those that led to the death of Abdulrahman al-Awlaki. And don't get me going, I rant on that one a lot. They go on to mention the Harris campaign operates an X account under the handle Kamala HQ. They mention that it displays fact checks, telling people that they're presenting them with the truth. They go on to mention the post in question, which includes they have since scrubbed this video from YouTube. In the body of the post, which has been viewed more than 12 million times, the Harris campaign asserted that Poole is a Trump operative with a Project 2025 plan, with a plan to give Trump total unchecked legal power so they can jail and execute those who don't support Trump if he wins. Nothing short of lawless extrajudicial killings. The Harris campaign further asserted that Mr. Poole and his guests since scrubbed this video from YouTube, falsely suggesting that Mr. Poole was or is trying to hide the video the Harris campaign incorporated, while also revealing the in-depth research it did into Mr. Poole and his views. I want to go on to mention that in the filing, we present from the actual show.
Yeah, so this is all just nonsense and bullshit.
A false statement that Mr. Poole is a Trump operative, that he has a Project 2025 plan, that he wants to give Trump total unchecked legal power to jail and execute those who don't support Trump if he wins. Those statements were and are false because Mr. Poole never said such a thing in the incorporated video, and has never
Number 46, the Harris campaign casts its statement as fact, not opinion.
Said such a thing previously. The content the Harris campaign clipped cannot be reasonably construed to support the claims made in the post at issue or from Mr. Poole's prior statements and conduct. The Harris campaign cast its statement as fact, not opinion. Accusations that Mr. Poole endorses lawlessness, executions, and extrajudicial killings harm his reputation and standing in his chosen career and profession. The Harris campaign published its statement on X to tens of thousands of third parties. The Harris campaign statement damaged Mr. Poole. The Harris campaign exhibited actual malice by claiming that Mr. Poole supported lawlessness and extrajudicial killings when he made no such claim, and despite the campaign's apparent research into Mr. Poole and his views. Count 2 is bad faith misconduct. Realleging the Harris campaign misconduct described previously herein was at all times carried out in bad faith, vexatiously, wantonly, and for oppressive reasons. Mr. Poole was damaged by the Harris campaign's bad faith misconduct, as previously described herein, in addition to his expenditures for the prosecution of this cause of action, which is necessary to clear Mr. Poole's name and restore his reputation.
But this is all it takes for the right-wingers and a lot of the people in the griftosphere to get a big win. You don't even need to have a day in court. You just need to show that you're willing to take action. The same thing happened with Steven Crowder. I don't know if you remember, Steven Crowder had this whole thing where he was like, I'm going to be suing a whole bunch of big tech for censoring us and all that kind of, like, what happened to that? Did he win? Did he defeat YouTube? Does anyone care? It's just basically, this is all you need. You submit this, whether or not a judge will dismiss it or not. Most likely they will. And that's all. And then afterwards, you get the other, like, again, that's why I think a lawyer probably would have told him, this is your trajectory. So you've got this, a judge will dismiss it, and then you can say afterwards that you were silenced, that maybe this judge was, part of the operation, whatever you want to do. You spin it how, that's your job. You're the spin artist. I'm telling you as a lawyer, this will not see a day in court, and if it does, you, don't have to worry too much. So we submit it, I write it up, I charge you, and then you spin it however you want, kind of thing.
Harris campaign's bad faith misconduct triggers the state's exception to the American rule for payment of attorney's fees as described in, I'm not going to read the case law. The Harris campaign's pre-litigation misconduct likewise triggers the exception to security costs, etc., as well as I forgot what it's called, but there's a specific term for marketing you have to undertake to try and counter certain messages. So that's the gist of it. There's obviously a lot more if you were to go through the whole thing. I didn't read everything,
obviously,
but I assume those who cover the story later on, assuming they do, I don't know, we'll probably be able to pull up.
What's the principle behind the jury trial? That just what your lawyers recommended that you do, or?
It's in the filing.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything pertaining to my lawyers and all this stuff is just, I can't talk about.
I understand.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, everyone's going to be curious, right? So.
Yep. And we're going to have to wait to see what ends up with this and all that stuff. But I want to make sure that for the sake of, respect for the courts and the process, obviously I will talk about this as I have an absolute need to defend my reputation. Many prominent leftist personalities are using these clips the Harris campaign posted out of context to defame me and lie about my views. We every day are reaching out to personalities across the board, and it becomes increasingly difficult to bring people on when they receive when you look. We try to book a liberal to come on the show, and they're getting threats and intimidation from other liberals. I'll give you an example. There was a YouTuber who reviewed "Am I Racist" by Matt Walsh. What's his name? Something Johns? I don't know. And he's getting attacks on the internet from the left for daring to talk about a movie. They want to make sure he cannot.
So basically, everyone was like, "Oh, I didn't know that he was into a far right extremist like Matt Walsh." I'm going to talk about that as the next story, but I think a lot of people were just pointing out. I didn't know a lot about Jeremy Johns, but it was pretty quick to point out the guy has a history of racism. He did a review of Black Klansman where he did blackface and did the review in blackface. So I don't think he's I guess the centrist movie reviewer that he was being portrayed as by a lot of people on the right.
do that.
That's what happened to Winston Marshall. He was canceled from Mumford & Sons for reading and liking Andy Ngo's book. He read the book.
That's right.
He said it was good, and he lost his band.
They can't risk his thoughts straying
Right?
into
I mean, that's totally
terrible
insane.
territory.
Do you know how long does the Kamala campaign have a certain amount of time
idea.
in which to respond? Do we have an expected response time?
No idea.
This was his review for Black Klansman. Oh, yeah. I think people were just pointing that out. To say that this was an unbiased review of Am I Racist by Matt Walsh might not be totally genuine. And if you're wondering what he looks like normally, this is what he looks like normally.
It's interesting. I like going after the Kamala campaign because the Democrats have been going after RFK mercilessly in every state. They launched lawsuits against states for erecting border walls because the Kamala campaign refused to do it. They claim they're opposed to sex changes for minors while they sue the state of Tennessee for banning sex changes for minors. I mean, this is the most litigious administration.
Well, I got to ask you.
In this regard, I will just say this filing is about an egregious lie that has damaged me, my business, has put us at security risk, as we've already experienced. It was only a couple days after this post came out that this guy shows up and is lurking around, one of my properties, putting my staff at risk. I will say, I have long told people you have to stand up and fight back, and it's very, very difficult. I have long been a huge fan of James O'Keefe, who says, be brave. And so when I am personally faced with something so shocking...
I don't know, you all just sound like Karens. Karens who hate free speech. Sounds like you just want to silence people who criticize you. That's all. You don't want them to have the power to be able to say whatever they want about you. And so you want to silence their speech through litigation. Unfortunately, in this case, again, it doesn't, I think, have any legal merit, but I'm not a lawyer. I don't have any legal expertise. Cannot say. I'm sure we'll get a nice Legal Eagle video on this in a couple days where he most likely will say that a judge is going to dismiss this outright, which I'm pretty sure Tim knows because, again, if you hire a lawyer, for the most part, when you hire lawyers, if they're not completely corrupt Lionel Hutz, kind of like, sketchy-ass cartoonish characters, they are going to be upfront and honest with you, and usually they're going to tell you, okay, well, this is, if it's something you want to go down this pathway, it's going to cost you probably around this kind of an amount. That's going to be for the hours billable, the amount of extra people I have to hire. You're looking at between $75,000 to $150,000 in costs, and that's going to be upfront costs, and that's not with a trajectory of success. You have, I wouldn't say a very high probability of winning this, so you have to ask yourself, is it worth it for you to do this simply for the the publicity of it? If that's something that you want, then we can absolutely draft this up. We can write it up. This will only cost you, so many $1,000. We submit it. It gets dismissed by a judge, and then you can review and use that and market it however you want. That's most likely how it was presented. If it is, again, just a regular ass lawyer trying to do their job. If they were someone who was trying to scam Tim, if they're just basically like, oh, we can win this. We're going to destroy the deep state. This is how we take down the entire Democratic Party. They wronged you. Don't worry. We got you. Well, then that's not being genuine because, again, if your lawyer is supposed to upfront explain to your client how the law works, because they might not be completely familiar, what defamation is, what the potential damages you have suffered, how you can recoup those damages, how it has to be presented in such a way that you actually suffered a financial loss, how you have to demonstrate that financial loss to be able to get gains and regain gains on that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think they're all being a bunch of Karens and just being like, we want to silence you. This isn't true. It never happened. The problem with having Tim Pool's Tim Pool uses Tim Pool's judgment to select his lawyer. That's not a recipe for success. Feeling very accomplished today that I and others exclusively shared the ratified air of being sued by Tim Pool. Fun stuff.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/The Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Puppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincel, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.